How do you quickly articulate a 1-minute story? Most of us, when trying to articulate a short story or an anecdote, we tend to go into an information loop where we tend to ramble on and give unnecessary details and eventually just lose our listeners' engagement. But the method we are about to get into is one of the easiest to learn and one of the most reliable ways for you to narrate any sort of story. In fact, this exact framework has been taught to thousands of people from all over the world to improve how they articulate a story. So in this video, we're going to get into the GPS method to help you articulate a story, a few relevant examples, and how you can reliably practice this technique. By the way, if you're new here, hi, my name is Radeep from Frantically Speaking. We release communications content regularly, so if you're into that, hit subscribe and like this video so it reaches more people. And if you want to take your communications learning to the next level, you can click the link in the description to explore our courses and see if we can work together. Okay, so what is this GPS method? It stands for Goal, Problem, and Solution. This GPS framework is the fundamental structure of any story. You think of a movie, a novel, a TV show, there is a protagonist who has a particular goal that they want to achieve. Now, if they just go ahead and achieve that goal, it's not really an interesting story. That's where a problem comes in that stops them from achieving what they want. And then they have to come up with a solution to overcome their problem and hence achieve the goal. That's the structure of almost any story. Sometimes we also notice that the protagonist does not achieve their goal. That's what we call an anticlimax. But in everyday conversations, we can use GPS to communicate any sort of information, not just a story that you and I think of in a traditional sense. In fact, one of the most valuable things of this particular framework is how you can simplify information and communicate it in a manner that is a lot more structured, even when it's seemingly technical information. Let's say, for example, if I have to teach somebody how to take technical information and explain it in a simplified manner. Here's how I can take that particular idea and apply it using the GPS framework. I would start by stating the goal by simply saying, if you want to explain technical jargon in a simplified manner, here's how you can do it. Now, before I move on to the solution, I will then state the problem. We sometimes tend to forget that people don't share the same educational background as us. And if we are an expert at something, they might be an expert at something else. So the language we use in our everyday life might not make any sense to them. Okay, we then move on to the solution. Now, this is where we'll be spending most of our time. We need to make sure that when we give the solution, we are providing a relevant example to ensure that the other person has clearly understood our particular point. So we've stated the goal and problem. Now, here's what the solution can look like. We can use a storytelling tool called as Analogies, which means taking two seemingly unrelated concepts and then comparing them together. For example, if you're trying to explain the concept of cloud computing to somebody who does not have the same background and information as you might want to stay away from explaining it like this. Cloud computing delivers computing services like storage, processing, and software over the internet, allowing users to access resources on demand without managing physical infrastructure. That's probably not going to make a lot of sense. Instead, what you can do is use an analogy and compare cloud computing to something that everyone can understand. For instance, we can say, think of cloud computing as renting a storage unit instead of building your own storage shed in your backyard. So instead of buying and maintaining your own servers, like building your own shed, you rent space and services from a cloud provider or the storage renting company, who then takes care of all the maintenance, upgrades, and securities. And you can also increase or decrease the amount of storage you need depending on your requirements, kind of like renting a bigger or smaller storage unit. And that's how you can simplify concepts using analogies. Now, how do you exactly practice this particular framework? What you want to do is try to rehearse the GPS method in a topic that you are an expert in. And this doesn't have to be just about your own work. It can be a hobby or a passion project as well. For example, if you're a fitness freak, you can make a list of the 14 most commonly asked questions within fitness that people might have asked you, friends and family might have come to you, or that you've noticed a lot of people struggle with. For example, one of your questions could be, how do I quickly lose belly fat? Now, what you want to try and do is answer that question using the GPS method. State the goal, move on to the problem, and finally the solution. And while doing this, you want to ensure your audio or even better video recording yourself so that you can hear it and understand what you did right and what you need to improve upon. And we want to make 14 questions like these so that we can practice one every single day, which would give us a nice 2-week practice plan to follow. And then eventually, no matter what concept you have to explain, you can utilize the fundamentals of storytelling to do that itself. But what's also important to understand along with the structure of a story is to understand how to deliver it effectively. That's where understanding how to modulate your voice to complement the words you're using can become really powerful. I highly recommend that after you're done with this to check out this video right here, which will show you how to modulate your voice in just 8 days.